Okay. The problem: America's failed children who live in poverty. Former presidential candidate John Edwards may not be the best husband, but he was right to identify that we live in two Americas, one well-off and one poor, and the problem is growing. According to a report from the Brookings Institute, since 1999, the number of people living in high-poverty neighborhoods has increased 41%. Further, the children living in areas of concentrated poverty are not being given a chance because the education they receive is worse than that of many third-world nations. As explained by Richard Gibney, Associate Professor of Education, in September 1st, 2008, children in some of our most poverty-burdened schools' post-achievement test scores are on par with those of third-world countries. Students in Washington, D.C., for instance, scored lower than 36 nations in mathematics. Students in wealthy communities score about 100 points higher than students in high-poverty communities. Our socially privileged students are also nearly 100 points above the international average. This does not look like a failing school system to me. There's a huge political and democratic failure. However, in our toleration of poverty, but those among the elite don't want to talk about it. It's safer, wealth protector, to deflect public attention to our failing public schools and to ignore the poor. I believe that students of all economic backgrounds deserve a quality education, and without improved schools, the cycle of poverty will continue. Now we examine the cause. Policies like No Child Left Behind have highlighted the educational achievement gap, but actually make it worse by not recognizing the link between economics and education. From the broader, bolder approach to Education Coalition Statement 2009. No Child Left Behind cast a bright line on the achievement gap. NCLB has seriously undermined, however, by its acceptance of the popular assumptions that bad schools are the major reasons for low achievement, and that an academic program revolving around standards, testing, and accountability can't offset the full impact of low socioeconomic status on achievement. NCLB has also been weakened by side effects, such as narrowing of the curriculum. NCLB also requires a rate of achievement that exceeds even the most effective school improvement measures. If a school is failing, more testing is not the answer. The answer lies in understanding the link between poverty and success in school. If a child has a toothache, how can she focus on math? If hungry students were provided after-school meals, how many more might attend programs like debate? We believe that millions of children are failing in school because their most basic needs, like health care, are not being met. Schools in these areas cannot fix the problems alone. They need social services, and the whole community must be involved. We have a vision for success called community schools. CommunitySchools.org defines them as both a place and a set of partnerships between the school and other community resources. Its integrated focus on academics, health, and social services, youth and community development and community engagement leads to improved student learning, stronger facilities, stronger families, and healthy communities. Schools become centers of the community and are open to everyone, all day, every day, evenings, and weekends. According to CommunitySchools.org, the Department of Education offered $5 million in 2008 to start 12 new community schools. However, 450 schools actually applied. We want to fully fund all qualified applicants and generate interest for more community schools. Our plan is as follows. The United States federal government should substantially increase social services for those living in poverty in the United States by providing full funding to all qualified school applicants under full-service community schools program established by the Department of Education. Funding will continue based on demand from schools. Enforcement will be through normal means. Now let us find the solution. Community schools can provide all children the education they deserve while improving America's most disadvantaged communities. From the Coalition for Community Schools report in May 2003, evaluations of 20 community school initiatives across the United States demonstrate notable improvements in 4 areas. Student learning. Community schools show significant and widely evident gains in academic achievement and development. Family engagement. Families in community schools show increased stability, communication with teachers, and school involvement. School effectiveness. Community schools enjoy increased teacher satisfaction, a more positive school environment, and greater community support. Community vitality. Community schools promote better use of school buildings and their neighborhoods, enjoy increased security, heightened community pride, and better rapport among students and residents. Community schools are accomplishing these improvements across the educational landscape, in districts large and small. Community schools do not want even the most exemplary traditional schools cannot. Create the conditions necessary for every child to learn at the highest levels. If you want to create the conditions for all students to succeed, I ask you to vote affirmative. Thank you.
All right, so I noticed the 1AC makes a lot of claims about the way in which economics structure education. I'm curious how the 1AC and its plan can change in any way the economic structure, which it itself indicates is the root of a community divide between education and the community.
Okay, this is a two-step process. First is to focus on the symptoms of that economic structure that causes certain groups to be disadvantaged.
Can you
and
also,
that's through
before you
community
go on the next
schools.
step, explain how that happens?
How the economic structure can disadvantage certain populations?
No. I mean, how does the AF look at the economic structure itself?
Well, okay. The affirmative identifies schools, community schools that target low-income families, low-income students, provides them services in the same school systems that they attend. I'm not sure if that is enough to answer your question.
Yeah, more.
Because the second part of this is that if we can address the symptoms, so the harms or the problems that result because of these economic disadvantages, then we can build a better educational system so that eventually we can start addressing the root cause of all this economic instability or inequality that caused problem in the first place.
So we set up these organizations, and then communities get involved. The first piece of Brookings Institute evidence in the 1AC indicates, though, that these communities are currently being excluded because of not a lack of resources, but rather their larger economic struggles. Why exactly does the plan facilitate those communities and their ability to integrate into these schools?
Because the main culprit of the exclusion is the federal government, and the only way to reverse that is to take the first step for the federal government and suggest that they ought to provide services to those people they've disenfranchised for the last 100 years.
Okay, with 15 seconds left, could you just explain briefly how the plan would be funded?
General federal revenue.
Okay, good deal.